This show is about never giving up and hearing it from a virgin.
You couldn't help yourself, could you?
I couldn't. So welcome to the Dr. Bergson's Best Health Radio Show. I'm Dr. Bergson, and as you know, I love to bring agile thinkers on this show so you can get in on these revealing and inspiring conversations and become a more agile thinker yourself. So today is about virgins. Well, not virginity, but kind of a tiny bit like Madonna's song. You know that song where Madonna says, like a virgin touched for the very first time? But this time, it's JJ Virgin. And we are really, really lucky to have her on the show, for you to hear her story, to learn from her story, and frankly, get your minds blown. And, you know, in her own words, what JJ cares about is empowering you. And she's known for being just this really high-end nutritionist. She helps people lose weight, to look great in sleeveless tops, to drop unwanted 7 pounds in 7 days. But what she is most about is about you becoming all that you can be without having to join the army. I'm right there with you, JJ. So as much as we all want to avoid suffering for ourselves and loved ones, it's really a reality that the most empowered, amazing, and inspirational people are those who went through hard times and came out stronger. They become more resilient, vitamin R, more self-aware, vitamin SA, and more capable of serving others, vitamin SO, so to speak. And JJ is that virgin or that amazing woman. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to come right into the show where she's going to be sharing with you her amazing story. I first met JJ myself because she's the CEO of an incredible gathering called the Mindshare Summit for healthcare practitioners who want to soar and get out into the world. And I've been going the last few years, and I'm going to be going in San Diego in August again. She's had 4 New York Times bestsellers. Now that's really huge. She writes books that are quite extraordinary, like JJ Virgin's Sugar Impact Diet, 6 Weeks to Sleeveless and Sexy. The Virgin Diet dropped 7 pounds by dropping 7 foods in just 7 days. But why she is on the show today, why I asked and nudged and really kind of got at her support staff, was I was so interested in a book that she also talked about at one of the Mindshare Summits called The Miracle Mindset. A mother, her son, and life's hardest lesson. So that's what this show is about. It's a message of personal empowerment, and JJ's lived it to the hilt. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her background, and we're going to get in to hear about her and her son. She's a board-certified nutrition specialist. I'm also one of those too, a holistic nutrition specialist, a nutritional counselor, a graduate of the Institute of Functional Medicine, applying functional medicine in clinical practice. She was a past president of the National Association of Nutritional Professionals, and she has been a fitness and health coach for 25 years with a stellar reputation. For 2 years, she's appeared as the nutrition expert on the top-rated Dr. Phil show. She regularly appears on media channels, including the Today Show, Access Hollywood, Woman's World, AOL's You've Got, New York Post, Washington Post, Reader's Digest, Fitness, Shape, the Huffington Post, NPR, and now right here on the Dr. Bergson's Best Health Radio Show. I love that she calls herself a chronic student because I'm a female geek, so I love that. But most of all, JJ Virgin is an amazing mother, and this is the story of her being an amazing mom, and I wanted you to hear it, get it, and be transformed by it. Welcome to the show, JJ.
Thank you. I have to tell you something that you are just going to flip out over. I'm going to read it. We are retitling the Miracle Mindset and bringing it back out as this: Warrior Mom. 7 secrets to bold, brave resilience. Face any challenge, beat all the odds, tap into your hidden superpowers.
Oh, that made that.
I know.
I love it.
Yeah, woo!
That is exactly it. And that's why I wanted to Vulcan mind meld you into my tribe for them to all hear. So can you share? So that is a great title to explain the incredible inspiration of what you went through. So in September of 2012, you thought you were on top of the world. And then What happened?
Okay. And this also is the be careful what you ask for. September 2012, I was actually at a business conference and we were being taught about the hero's journey and having your great story. And I remember walking out of this thing and thinking, man, I got no hero's journey. Like, I've got nothing. The next day is when my story unfolded. And at the time, my kids, my two boys were 15 and 16. I am the sole financial support of them. And along with that, I'm getting ready to launch the Virgin Diet. And I just knew this was going to be the book that changed it all. I thought this was how I was going to make my big impact out in the world. I'd seen what had happened. I'd taken thousands of people through the program. I saw what was changing for them. So when I got the big advance from the publisher, I went all in. I took the whole advance. I put it into marketing. I borrowed more because that was it. This was getting out into the world, right? I double down, babe. So I'm all ready to go. And it's a couple weeks out before the book is getting ready to launch, which is the craziest time of all. And my son, the 16-year-old, is the victim of a hit and run accident. He is literally out walking the street at dusk, gets hit by a car. The woman gets out of her car, gasped, gets back in the car, drives off. And fortunately, one neighbor pulls up, protects him, calls 911. When my ex-husband and my other son drive by the accident scene, they have no idea what's going on. They just know that Grant had gone out for a walk. And they see this accident scene and they stop because, my ex-husband, John, was like, my son was out walking. What happened here? And they said, oh, a kid was hit. They look at my other son. We always joke that my kids were Irish twins, right? They're a year apart. And they said, the kid who was hit looks just like him. And so we knew. Now, we called the hospital as we're driving over there, and they wouldn't give us any information. He was a John Doe. And, you look at all of the things that had to happen here. First of all, the neighbor had to pull in right when the neighbor pulled in to protect him. He was on a busy street. Secondly, if my ex-husband and my other son hadn't driven by that accident scene during that time, we never would have known, and he would have been a John Doe, and he would have died at that hospital. And third, we get to the hospital. Now, we'd already we didn't know what had happened, but we knew that if your son is airlifted to a hospital, it's not good. So we'd already called some friends. My family, my ex-husband's family are all doctors. So we kind of were prepared for what could be. And we get there as much as you could possibly be. We get there, we're ushered into a conference room. And, this was actually a very good case study of how not to behave as a doctor. Right? Like, this is what not to do. Ready? Here's what's not to do. Don't take the family and then make them sit down at a conference table and tell them nothing and start asking them questions like, what was your son out doing walking? I'm like, he's a teenager going to a friend's house, So they're asking us questions. I said, stop it. Please tell me what has happened to my son. And the doctor said, your son was the victim of a hit and run. He is very seriously injured. He has a torn aorta. It has to be repaired. It's an onion skin, and sometime in the next 24 hours, it's going to rupture, and he will die. Now, he needs it repaired, but we can't repair it here because he has multiple brain bleeds. He's in a deep, deep coma. And if we were to repair it, we'd need to use a blood thinner and his brain will bleed out. We can't send him off to another hospital. He'll never survive another airlift. Even if he were to survive the airlift, he probably wouldn't survive the surgery. Even if he were to survive both of those, he'd be so brain damaged. Now, can you imagine a doctor saying this? He'd be so brain damaged, quote, it wouldn't be worth it. My 15-year-old son, his brother's looking at this doctor and he goes, so maybe a 0.25% chance he could make it? And the doctor says, that sounds about right, son. He goes, well, we'll take those odds. And I looked at that doctor. I said, we're overruling you. And I think this doctor, my ex-husband's a medical malpractice attorney. As you know, all my friends are doctors. And so this was not I think this doctor's like, what? And I go, we're overruling you. John started all the legalese stuff. And that was it. And at the time, I knew I'd just been to dinner at the head of the UCLA healthcare system's house. And the doctor who actually saved Grant's life went to medical school with my ex-husband's sister, my sister-in-law. I mean, it's like everything, it's no longer 6 degrees of separation here. It's always 1 degree. And so we told him we were overruling him. And we started getting on the phone, and John started all the here's what's going to happen next. And so sure enough, he got airlifted to Harbor UCLA, number 2 trauma center in the country. But that's where really the most amazing stuff started to happen. We had a doctor who is like an angel to us. His name is Dr. Carlos Donaire. He received the fax at midnight about the case. Now, as you know, when a hospital accepts a case, the other hospital is like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm relinquished, right? So here's the case they have to accept. 16-year-old, torn aorta, ready to rupture at any time, deep coma, can't see, the deepest coma there is, and total road rash, 13 fractures. And Dr. Carlos Donaire says, we'll take it. I'm in, and assembles a surgical team of orthopedic surgeons, neurosurgeons, critical care, trauma ped, and his cardiothoracic team. In the middle of the night, this is now happening between 12 and 5 a.m. And he now has to get a stent to put in the aorta because he's one of the few surgeons in the country who can do this surgery without a blood thinner. So he wants to use a specific stent that was on a clinical trial, which is no longer available. He finds it, gets it shipped to the hospital. This is, again, midnight to 5 a.m. And it's not supposed to be used for kids. He goes, I figured I'd ask for forgiveness. This is the person you want in your camp. Now, we then get home, throw everything into suitcases, drive to Harbor UCLA, get there, walk in, and this doctor goes, are you the mom? And I'm like, this is like a movie. I am not registering that anything is real at this point. I think your brain just goes, this is a movie, not real, disconnect. I walk in, he goes, hey, you do not need to worry. I totally got this. I did 5 of these last month. I can fix them. Don't worry. Let me show you where I'm going to do the surgery. Gets me out of that room as quickly as he possibly can, because it is there are 5 surgical teams working on my son. It is full court press. They are getting him ready for surgery. He is getting me out of there. He shows me where they're going to do surgery. He goes, now, again, I've got this. Let me take you to the waiting room. I'll come over in a couple of hours when it's all done and tell you he's fine. I said, okay. Okay, that's great. I'll see you then.
What a powerful 0.25%. Wow.
What a difference, huh?
So did he just happen to be on call at that time when your son went to that facility? That was just the fickle finger of the universe?
They put this fax out there. A hospital has to grab it, take it. Obviously, the closest place that he should have gone was Harbor UCLA. And I guess they reached out to this doctor. And there it goes. So, yeah, we lucked up. He happened to be there in town because the guy travels all over the country teaching this surgery. And by the way, he saved Grant's life again, because when we were getting ready to transfer him to the next hospital 2.5 months later, he said, he needs to have a CAT scan before he goes. He discovered a pseudoaneurysm that would have killed him. And only because he said, stop, you can't transport him. I need a CAT scan. Had that done and found this. And we went into emergency surgery again. I'm like, oh my gosh, who is this guy?
He's the savior of your family. Definitely.
He is. I mean, he is the most humble human, just incredible. So
it's really amazing how often the most effective people really are the most humble people, because the sign of being really uppity is that you're insecure somewhere deep down. But so how did you, the story doesn't even end there. It kept going.
Oh, no. It's still going. It is still going. We made it through that first night, and they brought us in to see Grant. And we were at that time, still in the adult ICU at Harbor UCLA, which is a pretty scary place, let me tell you. It's a county hospital, and it's the adult ICU. There are a lot of police. There are a lot of people handcuffed to their beds. It's pretty dramatic. I was happy when he moved to the pediatric ICU. And we go in to see him. And, so the doctor comes in. He goes, okay, he's good. I fixed it. He's all done. Aorta's great, stents in, no problems. He goes, now I have no idea about his brain. I'm just the plumber. So we then go and see the neurosurgeons. They're like, we don't know if he'll ever wake up. We don't know the extent of his brain damage, doom and gloom. And I'm like, I'm not going to listen to any of this.
Okay, I just want to ask you something though. How are you the kind of person that won't listen when your son is this ill and all these specialists say that? Most moms would take everything that the doctors say at this time as complete gospel. How do you have such oomph and sense of self and sense of that you can co-create your son's fate to not take what they said as how your son will unfold?
Well, here's what I figured. As long as he was still alive, the people I know some of the most amazing doctors on the planet. And I figured that if he was still alive, we could figure it out. If he wasn't alive, we're done. It's game over. But as long as he was alive, we were going to figure this one out. And believe me, was it scary? Did I have doubt along the way? But, as long as you have hope, you can keep going. And when the little doubt would come in, I would push it out. I'd push it out with gratitude. I'd push it out with my plans, because I could not let that in. It's like if you had the littlest sense that this wasn't going to work, I was afraid that would happen. So I just didn't entertain any of that. When they would start any of that, I'm like, that is not going to happen. He is going to be fine. You're going to see he's going to be 110%. They thought I was an absolute raving lunatic, I'm sure. However, I looked at it and it wasn't to me like, how do we get him to wake up? I was focused from really that first day standing. It was the first 24 hours. I think he got hit at around 7. We got there at 9. He got airlifted around 2 a.m. We got to the hospital at 5. He had surgery. It was about 8. And starting at about 10 a.m., it was, all right, how do we get him to be 110%? First, it was like, how do we get him through the surgery? And then once he was through that, of just focusing survive the surgery, right? And I'm like, how do I get him to be 110%? He's going to wake up. We're going to get through this. I put an SOS out to everybody, to my entire email list, to all my friends, to Facebook. And it was like, I don't want your sympathy. I need your support. I need whoever you know right now who's kicking it in brain injuries, who was ever smartest. I reached out to my buddy, Dr. Daniel Lehman. I reached out to Dr. Hyla Cass. I just went boom, let's get it out there. And you'd be amazed the information. I had Dr. Barry Sears sending me how we did all the fish oil, Dr. Mike Lewis. I mean, we got so much support on what to do. We had so many people helping us. Dr. Ann Myers was in there doing essential oils with us. Dr. Annika Becca got all the info on progesterone to me. I worked with Dr. Donald Stein, who figured that one out. So I just was like, forget it. What do I need to do? And granted, yes, I have resources, but you know what? We all have resources now. When you really look at it, you can pretty much get to anyone nowadays, right?
Right.
So you can get to anybody. So I was just like, I'm getting to everybody. I'm going to get help. And I just figured, everyone's going to give me their opinion because that's what it is. But I couldn't, there was always that, and believe me, there were some what ifs that came into my mind. Sometimes I'd leave the hospital at night because he was in a coma for weeks, and you don't come out of, I thought you came out of a coma like you see in the movies. You wake up, you look, you say, I love you, everything's beautiful, the birds are chirping. I thought that was it. They told me it would be ugly, but I didn't know that it would be ugly for years. I thought it would be ugly for about 5 minutes. And I didn't realize that when you come out of a coma, my son came out of a coma over months. He had to learn who he was, how to speak, how to eat, how to go to the bathroom, how to brush his teeth, how to tie his shoes, everything all over again. So it's been a crazy, crazy time, but I would have those occasional times where it would be like this fear would hit like a lightning bolt of, oh my gosh, what if this is as good as it gets? And I just couldn't ever dwell on that what if, because it was so scary and terrifying that the only thing that could keep me sane and whole was to go with, what can I do? And to always focus on, I'm going to get him to be 110%. What do I need to do to get him there? Because I believe that when you ask the right questions, those are the answers you get. So if the answer I got was like, how do I keep him alive? That's a very different, outcome than how do I get him to be 110%. And I started telling him from day one, I was like, Grant, you're a warrior. Your name means warrior. You're going to be 110%. I will get all the resources. You have to fight. That's what I need you to do. You have to fight. And he literally told me, he said, the gray man asked me if I wanted to live or die. And it was a lot nicer over there. He goes, but I kept hearing your voice. And so I decided to come back. So I always tell that to people. I go, they can hear you. They can hear you. Be sure you manage everything around them, right? I believe thoughts create. I believe we get what you expect. And, so I figured I'm just going to expect something really big. My son has struggled his whole life since the age of 5 with bipolar disorder. It's been a tough life. And I thought, this is our second chance. Let's make it even better than before.
So when you were putting out all these SOSs to this incredible tribe that you have, I mean, you mentioned you were throwing out names, Dr. Amen, who is the brain guru, and Hyla Cass, who's the functional psychiatrist, and Anna Quebeca using progesterone like they've done in brain trauma centers and even randomized trials. So what was the protocol that you put together, and how did you serve it up to him in a hospital that probably didn't usually allow those things for their patients?
Yeah, there was that problem. Yeah, well, if you can't get through the door, you go through the window, right? So they weren't so open-minded about these things. It was a little frustrating at the time because I just had dinner at the CEO of the whole UCLA healthcare. And so I wanted to give Grant high-dose fish oil. He'd been on fish oil prior to the accident, 5 grams. I believe that's one of the big reasons he survived the accident, because of the protective effects of fish oil. And so I wanted to get him up to 20 grams. I was looking at the research that Barry Sears provided and Mike Lewis provided. In fact, Sanjay Gupta did a story on CNN about Grant because of this. And, when I ran into Dr. Gupta in the green room at Access Hollywood, he told me that they've been getting babies off of swimming pool floors, blue babies, and bringing them back. So I was like,
with fish oil.
So now is this
fish oil mostly DHA instead of EPA?
No, it's a combo.
It's a combo. Okay.
So, but what was frustrating was, so I knew all this, and I told the hospital, and they wouldn't let me go over 2 grams because they were afraid of the bleed time because he was on warfarin. And I go, but there's no research to show that. Like, there's 0 studies. They've looked and looked and looked. It doesn't do that. So what I did when I realized they weren't going to go along with this is we got him to 2 grams, and then he hacked up his own feeding tube. And then as far as I was concerned, it was game on. So I had my own concoctions going in the back. And I just knew whenever they were going to do a blood test, I'd shove his dose up higher and I'd check his times. And his bleeding times never increased. So I just kept driving it up higher and higher. As far as progesterone, it was cream. That's all. Just giving him a little massage. And the essential oils, they figured that was just, they called them those little oils. I'm letting you do your little oils. I'm like, okay. So, it was very funny because they were like, who are you? Because literally, Dr. Daniel Amen shows up at the hospital. Dr. Hyla Cass is there. Dr. Prudence Hall. All these people are showing up. They're like, who are you? And why are all these people sending gift baskets of salmon and kale? And, the doctors were not very open-minded about this. Their world is helping people who are having massive trauma. This is a different place. Rehab is very different than, repairing a torn aorta. So when we got to the rehab facility over at Children's Hospital LA, they were way more open-minded because that's what they do, so it's just a different focus. But it was funny because the nurses at the first hospital were like, could you write down what you're doing? Because I want to use it on this patient. They were watching. They were going, I don't know what you're doing, but I need to know. I want to use it on my mom. I want to use it on this patient. Because I had a NutriBullet blender. As soon as Grant got his feeding tube hacked up, which he did himself, so when I told him he couldn't get it out. What do you mean
his feeding tube hacked up?
So he had a feeding tube, right, going down his throat. And he was like, wanting to get it out. And I go, it's a Sunday. We'll have to wait till Monday. And the next thing I know, he's like, I'm like, okay, never mind. We'll get it out. But I had a NutriBullet blender. I was putting vitamin D and amino acids, a really great amino acid blend, probiotics, fish oil. I was just
Were you putting this down a feeding tube?
No. I was making him smoothies.
Oh, okay.
And I was telling him, I was like, he couldn't talk yet. And I was saying, Grant, this is what I'm doing. I was telling him everything. I was like, I'm giving you this stuff. Here's what it's going to do for you, right? I've got fish oil in here. I've got these. I go, this is going to make you strong. I just need you to take all this in. because as he was first starting to eat, we had to really work on that. He would gag, he would throw up. So I was like, really, I couldn't like shove too much at once. So we just were bringing it in and bringing it up as we went. But, they literally at this hospital, I had to write a big sign that said no insure, no hospital food. It was one of the first things he did was point to the hospital food and say disgusting.
Then you knew his mind was working.
I was like, he's here. He's coming back. I'd go to Whole Foods and I'd get him wild salmon. I'd bring him in sushi. He wanted a lot of fish. That was one of the biggest things he wanted, which was pretty cool. He ate a lot of sushi. Children's Hospital LA had sushi, so that was great. But they wanted to give him Crystal Light. And I'm like, he's got a brain injury. Like, he cannot have aspartame. He's got the potential for seizures. Why would you give him this? It's where we still fall down. I just, in the perfect world, we'd all come together and share all best practices. But, the trauma center saved his life. They're amazing at that. But then that's their specialty isn't what happens after that. And they said that. They go, we don't have anything for him after this. And that's where Children's Hospital was great. And they were totally open-minded to everything that I was doing. There were a couple things I just didn't mention because I figured it didn't matter, like progesterone therapy, because I actually got a hold of the guy who was doing all the studies on progesterone therapy, because the studies were done for the first 72 hours post-injury. And I go, it's more than 72 hours. He goes, well, that's all we had funding for. And I said, so if it were you, because I know what you can't say, right? I go, if it were you, if it was your family, what would you do? He go, I'd keep going. So I was like, what, like risk reward, no risk, what, maybe we'll lower his testosterone. It's fine. We'll fix that later. We did progesterone for 6 months. We did high dose fish oil. We did 20 grams for 6 months, then went down to 10 grams. And now he's still on 5 grams.
So he's amazing now, but tell how long this journey was. And at Mindshare, he was doing acrobatics.
No, that's the other one.
Oh, that's the other one? That's the other one?
This one's not doing that. This one,
okay.
No, he can't risk hitting his head.
Okay.
That was one of the biggest things they told us after on discharge is do not hit your head.
What does this have to say to you for kids that are out playing football?
Well, here's the thing. When you look at brain injuries, I think that the biggest challenge we face right now with brain injuries is the lack of awareness. I've been working with Dr. Dan Engel and Dr. Mike Lewis on this. Dr. Dan Engel wrote the Concussion Repair Manual, and Mike wrote When Brains Collide. The challenge is we all probably have a brain injury or two in us, and we just don't even realize it. A traumatic brain injury is a concussion. A concussion's when you hit your head. When you hit your head, you hurt your brain. Dr. Dan Amen talks about this very clearly. Like our brain is, an egg going up against a hard surface, like sloshing up against it. You hit your head hard, slosh, you hurt your brain. And your body is a history book and your brain's a history book. So you look at the symptoms of a brain injury, memory loss, mood disorders, seizure activity, unstable brain, memory fog, you go in, you're like, I got some fog, some hormone dysfunction. And you wonder how many of the things that we don't have a reason for, the depression, are actually just symptoms of this brain injury that you never really thought about. When I was in my late 30s, I was driving down on the freeway and I had a car spin out and hit me head on the freeway, and another car hit me from the rear. Boom, boom. And I passed out for a minute and then was put on a stretcher and sent to the hospital. And then they released me and said, oh, take some time. You couldn't even touch me for the first week. I'd throw up. And it took about a year, but I never even thought about it. The fact that I had a brain injury, it's like I didn't know. If you'd said I had traumatic brain injury, I'm like, no, I just, I got a little car accident, whiplash. It's like, what are you talking about? But how many of us have had these things? Right.
An article just came out that kids in playing football probably have multiple brain injuries just when they're tackling, but there's no way of really
how would you know? How do you rate it? That's one of the things we're working on is what's the simple self-assessment to know. And by the way, not just football, volleyball, soccer, we look at football, but actually girls volleyball, high risk, soccer, high risk. it's not just sports injuries. There's vibrational injuries. Of course, there's chemical injuries to the brain. There's spousal abuse. A lot of women end up with brain injuries. And women, by the way, we thought at first that maybe women were more protected because of the progesterone, but it turns out that women concuss 2 times more and take like twice as long to heal. So this is a big, big issue.
Especially if you've got a history of migraines. I guess if you have a history of migraines and then you get a brain injury, it really ups the difficulty of really healing it.
Yeah. So I look at this whole thing and I go, one, we should all be on fish oil to protect our brain. And we need to know the warning signals of all of this and start to heal. Because here's the cool thing. No matter if you had a brain injury 20 years ago, 10 years ago, last week, you can heal your brain. When Grant first had the injury, they said, okay, it's really the first 6 months are key. And then you've got about 2 years and that's as far as you're going to get. Well, that is the most ridiculous bunch of hooey ever. It's not 2 years. Your brain doesn't go, okay, we're done. We're not going to heal anymore. This is it. That is not how this works. He has made some massive changes just in the last year.
And how far out is it now?
It's 5.5 years right now. In fact, as soon as we're done with this interview, he's heading over because he's with a doctor down the street getting another series of stem cells. And he's had 3 rounds of stem cells. First, he did autologous, where we had them drawn from his fat. We had them grown in a lab in New Jersey and injected to his spine. And now we're doing this laser-activated, laser-guided stem cell therapy. So, we've done that. We've done hyperbaric. We've done neurofeedback. We've done CBD. We do meditation. We've done art and gardening and fish oil and a ton of nutrients. We're starting NAD. We're going to do some vagal nerve work. There's no end to what you can do here, right?
And the brain is so plastic, it just keeps responding.
So this idea, we used to think at the age of 50 on, you couldn't learn new things. I'm smarter today than I've ever been. I still get better and better and better. I think all of this is just, we're going to find more and more, there's no end to this, which is great news. But the challenge I see out there is that most people are not aware. And if you don't know that you have a problem, you cannot fix the problem. So I would like to really get the awareness out there that, most of us probably have a brain injury in our history book for our brain, and we need to do things to fix our brain. I wonder how much of the dementia is due to some of this rather than what we're thinking it is, which is all blood sugar issues. There's probably
how interesting.
Right? There's a combo of all this stuff. We think it's estrogen or we think it's blood sugar.
Right, it's a tapestry, right.
But it's is it ever one thing?
No.
Is it ever one thing? Is
That's
diabetes
why
due to obesity?
One pharmaceutical to give an answer is so absurd.
It's ridiculous. Absurd. It's ridiculous. So, look at diabetes. We say, oh, it's obesity. But is it obesity or is it the toxins in the fat? And is it, what is it? Is it the toxins, fat, or is it your sleep? It's or maybe it's the stress, or maybe it's because you don't exercise. Everything is all of these things. And healing is all of these things too. I mean, exercise is a big key part of this. Family is a big part of this. I think I was talking to Kevin Ballister this morning, who's had a massive brain injury, very similar to Grant's. And he was telling me the statistics, and really, it was the family support that was one of the biggest differentiators of all of this. So,
support,
I think...
Well, it's so interesting. My alma mater, the University of Michigan, has shown that when you hang together with family or dear friends, you create more progesterone. You literally make more hormones by more community authentic connection. So maybe that's the mechanism by which connection and family support physiologically helps promote better brain health besides feeling better. The hormones make you feel better and your brain heal better. Isn't it interesting? It's like Mother Nature built all this stuff in. We're tribal. We're supposed to be in tribes. That's why I built Mindshare. I was going, gosh, we're all little islands here. Everyone's fighting against each other and being competitive. What if we all got together and shared and became a tribe and supported each other? What would happen here, right? We're tribal. We're supposed to be together. I think one of the biggest diseases we're going to have that is going to threaten us is the disease of social isolation. That is so interesting you say that, because in my book, Sexy Brain, I say that nature created authentic connection. So we release these hormones and chemicals to caretake our brain, and then we hopefully become a better parent and hold a more stable household. And I talk about the problem of isolation, the way technology in a contemporized world is creating that. Right.
The fake friends and all that. Yeah, it's so, I'll just, it's so amazing when you get pregnant and you just realize. I remember I was walking down a little alley in Santa Monica, and I'm pregnant with Grant, and these two thuggy guys come walking up to me, and I thought, I'm going to kill you. You come near me, you're dead, both of you big thugs. And
have you always been like this spunky and this sure of yourself? Is this how you came out of the womb, or did you earn and learn this?
I think there's always a little bit of both. It's very interesting. I'm adopted, and I am nothing like my adopted parents. Nothing. I grew up in Berkeley, which is such a great place to grow up, just kind of exposed to everything. And I meet my birth parents when I'm 25. I hired a detective. And my birth mom and I are so alike. When she was engaged to be married to my birth dad, they were at University of Oregon. They were supposedly the hip, hot couple on campus. And this is like the first man she's ever slept with. She gets pregnant, and he wants her to drink quinine and abort because it's not the right time. And she's like, that's not happening, right? And then his mother wants me, and she doesn't like his mother. So she decides she's going to go to San Francisco. She moves into a home for unwed mothers, a Catholic home for unwed mothers in San Francisco, and has me. And she decides she wants to give me up to a family that is focused on athletics and education. Now, my adopted parents focused on golf. So I was like, I'm sorry, now I'm going to make golfers upset. But, they were cocktail golfers, right? But, I thought, what a strong woman to just go do that when that was absolutely against everything everyone was telling her to do. That's what she decided she was going to do. That was it. And so, I got some of that in there, I would say. It was very interesting meeting her and realizing we walk the same, we move the same, we look the same, we have the same interests, the same likes. My birth dad's a massive entrepreneur. My birth mom and her whole family are scientists.
So do you now have an ongoing relationship with them?
No. My birth dad, I did not fit into the picture. He married a debutante. I think she was Miss Oregon, and I did not fit into the white picket fence picture at all. And that was problematic. I had to take a paternity test, blah, 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 which was ridiculous. It was clear. And then my birth mom is not maternal. It just was a very bizarre thing. And being a mom, I just don't understand it. There's no question being a mom that there is nothing I won't do for my kids. If it means walking into the fire for them, I'm doing it. I will do whatever it takes for my kids, right? That is just it. So I don't quite understand. She missed that maternal gene in there. But she did fight for my survival. So there's that. But there's really not, that's the interesting thing when you're adopted that I found was there really wasn't there's not a place for me, but it was really good to know. Growing up, I never was like anyone in my family. And so I was always curious. It's how could you not be curious? I was convinced growing up that my mother was Barbara Streisand. I'm not quite sure where I got that from. I was so convinced that my mother was Barbara Streisand.
Really?
Because we look so much alike and I sing so well. Yeah, I was. My mom must have been like, no, honey, your mom's not Barbara Streisand.
Well, so you didn't have a place for you, but now you've made such a huge place for you and for so many. And talk about your what you've done now with your awareness about brain trauma, what you have manifested as a dream and to go on and help so many others.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, the Mindshare whole community was really, I think, my goal of drawing a community and family around me.
That's so interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it really has been. I am really this connection-oriented person of I will just build my family, right? And so that's all drawn out of that. I've always been really driven to help people get healthy in the way of taking responsibility. I believe that we need to take personal responsibility for our health, and that there needs to be easily accessible information out there, which is when I first wanted to help people. I started out as a trainer and then a nutritionist, and I kept saying, I got to help 1 million people. And the next thing you know, I'm on Dr. Phil. So there I am, because I always think, it's like, if you just have your big why there, like the how kind of shows up. And so then I thought, well, like, heck, we hit millions. So now I go to billion. How am I going to do that? That's the Mindshare Summit, like helping all of these amazing people with such great messages, get them out into the world. And then with this whole thing that happened with Grant, I'm like, wow, we really have to get this message out. So this is kind of the next, and probably the lifelong mission will be to help people realize that, this is a way bigger problem than people realize. Right now, the statistics are 1.7 million people suffer a traumatic brain injury every year. And at any time, 5 million people are disabled. I think that number is super underestimated, because I don't think we know how to look at this.
It's so interesting. I have a neighbor. I live in a cul-de-sac, and I have a beloved neighbor, and she's a top-notch lawyer. She won a big lawyer award last year, and she works with a major company here in Austin, Texas. And she woke up in the middle of the night one time, was going to the bathroom, and fainted and fell and hit her head on the toilet bowl, and has been suffering for almost 6 years now, has seen 42 different experts, has done so many different things, and cannot drive, cannot watch a movie.
No.
And it's been very, very difficult. And she's seen top-notch functional people.
Has she done stem cells?
She has not done the stem cells. And it's interesting that you say that, because I was diagnosed a year ago as going blind, and I created a whole protocol and dove right in. And one of the aspects, one of the pillars of my protocol was stem cells, not the only thing. And so I've spoken to her about this. It actually is the next horizon that we're chatting about. And I'm going to want to get some more information from you.
I've got some great resources for that. And here's the interesting thing. This is going to change medicine, but it's going to be a challenge, because it's going to end a lot of things that we won't need anymore. It's just like right now we're look at the opiate pain issue, and how much we can solve that with CBD and medical marijuana. And now all of a sudden, all that stuff's starting to get shut down. So it's interesting, because we have our stem cells are banked in a place in New Jersey being grown, and the FDA went in and shut it down. And now it's under investigation. I'm like, come on, so.
Do you think it's a battle of just the money? Is it a battle of the money? Is that what you think? How can it be such, unless they end up having a personal beloved, personal one that then is, need. Like that, right, that's in that scenario? Change. Yeah.
Well, look at how many doctors in our world, and it's almost all of them. Look at the doctors in our world. They all have personal stories, how they came into functional medicine. Now, it's going to change, because now, thanks to a lot of the functional medicine doctors, it's getting into the curriculum, it's getting out there. But the pioneers all had their personal stories,
right? Who
saw this and had to go against popular, what they're being taught. They had to stand up for it. They were considered to be quacks, right? So this is going to be another one of those things where people who have no hope, like I looked at it, I go, wait a minute, you're telling me I can't do this for my son? What's the risk? There's no risk. And look at the things we weren't allowed to do in the hospital that had no risk. I was like, why can't we do this? I'm going to do this. And, the risk right now, he's got a risk of dying. I'm going to do everything I can here. I don't care. I don't care if it's not allowed.
What I really love is that you said, okay, if I let it in that he might die, that's not going to serve anything, and it might disrupt the momentum of him healing. So I'm going to go for 110%, and I'm going to think of everything that can lead him and us and our family to 110%.
Right.
But that's a powerful mind. That's a mind with a tremendous amount of resilience. A lot of people cave under these kind of circumstances. Can you give us, for the rest of people who don't seem to have as naturally that much resilience in a scary, traumatic scenario, what might be a few pearls that you can share to grab that vitamin R of resilience?
Okay. And my resilience has grown over the years because it expands. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, right? It's true. But here's what happened. When I was 30, I had a client. I was a personal trainer. I was in my 4th grad school, and I had this client who was a self-made multimillionaire woman, and she had grown up in a trailer park in Kansas. Okay, high school graduation, high school graduate. That's it. And this woman was amazing. And she inspired me. And I remember we're walking down the beach and she goes, so why are you, why are you in grad school? And I go, well, I want to help more people. She goes, all right. What are you going to do when you graduate? I said, I'm going to go to doctoral school. She goes, why? I go, because I want to help more people. She goes, I graduated high school. Now, this woman had helped so many people. She goes, I will teach you what I know, because school doesn't necessarily correlate with being able to help more people. I'm like, it doesn't? Because I just didn't know the path. I didn't know the path. I think for so many people, they just don't know how to build resilience, right? They don't know. And I realized when I was going through this whole thing with Grant, and I wrote the book, Now Warrior Mom, and I wrote these lessons, and I was going through an interview, after I wrote the book, they were going, how did you learn all this stuff? And I go, I don't know. And then I realized it was all what she taught me, because she said, I'll teach you. And I said, great. I moved into her house, and I thought she was going to teach me business strategy. But for 6 months, all she taught me, it was like Mr. Miyagi. She just taught me mindset. She just taught me mindset. And she kept saying, don't wish this was easier. Make yourself stronger. And she goes, if it's easy, everyone will be doing it. She goes, you just have to be, every single time you've got a comfort zone, and you just want to push outside that comfort zone, because every time you do, you'll never go back. That will become your new comfort zone, and you'll grow and grow and grow. And so by the time I got to this situation with Grant, I'd gone through so many things. And, when you look at it, it's not the easy things in life. It's not the stuff that happens that's great, that where you grow. I can't think of one situation in my life where things were going my way and I became a stronger, better person because of it. Not a one.
I totally agree. And, we don't wish this on our kids, on our best friends, but where you get to be a piece of art is by soul sculpting. And what carves your soul out is that real knife of suffering, and then crawling up out of it and putting all the pieces back together again.
Exactly.
Yes.
I was so broke when I was giving birth to my son, Grant. And it was when I discovered that my attorney husband didn't actually want to be an attorney. He actually didn't want to work at all. I was like, wait a minute, wait. We don't have any, we are not, I'm a weight loss expert and you don't want to work. And we were so broke. And I remember calling my birth dad, who's a multimillionaire, and kind of telling what was going on. He goes, well, this will make you stronger. And I'm like, wait a minute, no. I just need, I need to feed my child. He goes, yeah, you'll figure it out. I'm like, that's not really what you want to hear at the moment. But I'll tell you, the things I face now, I look at it and I go, my litmus test for anything now is anyone dying? Nope. Okay, I got it.
That's my litmus test now. I go, has any comparison to going blind? Nope. I'm doing fine. I'm not going blind. I can handle this. Right? It puts things into perspective.
Oh my gosh. You look at so many
all
things,
perspective.
That don't sweat the small stuff. Right. It really is all small stuff. And honestly, I have some of the most amazing friends in my life. And I think about, when people call and they're whining about stuff. And I think about Dean Graziosi, who not only grew up in poverty, he grew up in a bathroom. He didn't even grow up in he grew up in a bathroom of a trailer, not just the trailer. The bathroom in the trailer is where he grew up. You look at.
You mean he was chained to the bathroom?
No, he lived in the bathroom. That's where he lived.
Oh, that was his bedroom. It was in the bathroom.
His bedroom was the bathroom. That's where he slept, in the bathroom. You look at Brendan Burchard, where he tells his story, and his mom is like my adopted mom. She's super close. They had no heat. They couldn't pay their bills. So his mom said, we're camping. They lived in their living room in tents. And here's people whining about stuff. I go,
Do you think that's somewhat of what's happened to the Americana? We're so ill. We're so whatever. We've become so soft. We're overweight. We're out of shape. We're so soft. We're afraid to be anything other than treat ourselves like a china cup. So to really have that verve, that R, that vitamin R resilience, you have to live a life that builds up that resilience.
Yeah, it has to. You have to be challenged. I'll give you a greatest example of that. So here's Grant. He survives the unsurvivable. He was dead in the street. They resuscitate him. They bring him to the hospital. They tell us to let him die. We refuse. We get him through all these things. They keep telling us he's not going to wake up. He's not going to walk. He's not going to hear. We're like, yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. We bring him home. But now I'm treating him like a China doll. I'm afraid to let him cross the street. I'm afraid to let him do anything. And he's getting depressed and angry and frustrated. And all of a sudden I go, I am approaching this absolutely wrong. So I flip it and I go, go ahead, do that. You can do this. I go, Grant, you were dead on the pavement. You got this. You can totally do this. This is easy for you. Completely changed everything. People don't want to be overprotected. We are never better than when we're challenged. You've got to, especially if you're a parent, challenge your kids. You got to let them go out there and make mistakes. My other son, who is now 20, he is at college and he's now going to move into an apartment. He's in one apartment. He doesn't like it. And he says, Mom, I want to go find another apartment. I'm not happy where I'm at. The guys are really negative. I go, okay. Well, lo and behold, he's found a great apartment with his girlfriend. I go, huh. Now, this girlfriend, I'm like my ex-husband and I, who are really close friends, we're like, I don't think this is going to work very well. But, this is a great life lesson to learn early. So I go, honey, what will happen if this doesn't work? And he goes, oh, no, it's going to be great. It'll be perfect. I go, but just hypothetically, if it doesn't work, the lease is in my name, so she'll have to move out. I just want to be super clear, just in case. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. They move in October. Now, October is their move-in month. They're slowly moving in from their other places. They aren't fully in till November 1. November 1 is when I get the Mom, this isn't working. I'm like, well, what you going to do about it? So it was like, my friend's like, I can't believe you let him do this. I go, this is awesome. It took me till 50 to learn this. He's learning this at 20. This is fantastic. We'll let him sort it out. And I also said to him, because I'm like, listen, if she's being a brat, I'm going to go over there and pull her out by her hair. You better call Dad. Dad's much better at these things than me. He'll figure out the Sun Tzu strategy. I'm just going to come over there and get her out. So you talk to Dad, you guys work up a plan and figure it out. It's like, this is great. He's like apologizing. Oh, this is awesome. You work this out and figure this out at 20, you win.
So what's Grant doing right now?
So Grant is at home. He's went out to Utah, and because what I realized too was no matter how hard I tried, I was like, I got to put him out in the world. So I actually sent him to Utah to live in, it started out in a home with a family that helps kids get independent. And then he was in an apartment and then he had to have another surgery. And so we brought him back home for that. And
what was that surgery for?
It was for his knee. They thought he was going to have another surgery for his heel. But what's been very interesting is I started to use some other technologies with that. And we were able to not have the surgery on his heel. He had to have one surgery on his knee. And then we had to do some work. Here's what was very interesting. You're going to love this story. So he, over the course of literally a month, he gained a lot of weight. And I went, what the heck happened here? He didn't change his eating. He didn't change his exercise. And so I sent him to a functional medicine doctor, the head of the functional medicine doctor in our town. And it is one of the wealthiest, towns around in the country, very wealthy, very well-known hospital. And that doctor, who knows me, says, he just needs to eat less and exercise more. I go, come on, you didn't just say that. I go, and this doctor has a son with a brain injury. Now, one of the things when you have a brain injury is that you always have to monitor hormones because you now have messed up your pituitary and hormones go sideways. And so I go, just run these tests. So we run the tests. He's hypothyroid, elevated insulin, low testosterone. His testosterone is 200. He's 20. His insulin was 20. His TSH was 3. He says they're all in normal range. Okay, I'm like, all right. Called up my buddy, Dr. Alan Christensen, got him help on the thyroid part, and then got Dr. Kirk Parsley, who works with the Navy SEALs, next Navy SEAL, who helps all the Navy SEALs with this stuff, got him back in line with his testosterone, got his insulin sensitive again. But I was like, I cannot believe I'm hearing these things. So
The
we are still,
the bias of
oh
weight
my
gain is
goodness.
so
like,
even in a
I was
functional
like, who
doc.
says this anymore? Like, I
Oh
go, I didn't
God.
even think this was out there anymore. Like, you really just said this to me. I'm like, I have no tolerance. And you know what's so funny is my ex-husband brought him in, and he just was like, yeah, we're gonna humor your mother, wink wink. And Sean's looking at him like, you idiot, really, you just said that, okay. So anyway, it is upsetting. And I think one of the key things you have to do is, like, if you hear that kind of information, go find someone else.
Yeah, that's what I always tell everybody here that's listening. If somebody says there's nothing they can do, it means they don't know anything that they can do.
Which, by the way, just admit you don't know. I mean, it's fine.
That would be so humble and so bonding if you could be authentic like that. But boy,
I don't know. I'll refer you to someone, or I'll find out, right? I mean, what's wrong with that? Like, this is a complicated case. Of course, you're not going to know everything. He has an entire team of experts helping him, which we're outlining so that we can help a lot more people with this. But how would you know everything? But to say something ridiculous like that, I'm like, come on, stop it.
So what do you think, having lived through this, now you have a book, Warrior Mom, coming out. I love the name of that. It's the book morphed to this next incarnation, I imagine. What is the one or two things that you didn't expect, besides becoming more resilient, to gain from such trauma and coming through the other side?
Yeah, it's interesting. Bryce, my 20-year-old, we were all sitting at the table, and we all kind of agreed we are all better because of this. Bryce is better. Grant's a better person. John's amazing. My ex-husband is the most amazing person. He is so, like, Grant is doing as well as he's doing because of him. What's incredible is, I'd say, there's two things that have come out that are just such big gifts. The gift of forgiveness. The most powerful thing you can do is to be able to forgive. I'm amazed how many people ask me about, have they found the woman who hit him? I'm like, no, we stopped. I never even pursued it because it was a non-issue, right? Like, first of all, I don't know that it was her fault. Like, why are you so quick to blame? It was incredible. There was such a witch hunt out around my area. She shouldn't have driven off. Like, that was not good, but I don't know what was going on, so who cares? So the gift of forgiveness and the gift of empathy. We're so quick to judge people. We don't know what's going on in their life, right? We just don't know. And I feel so fortunate that I'm surrounded by such amazing people, and people want to help. And being able to ask for help, that's been a big takeaway for me. But watching too how amazing my ex-husband has been with my son, it is so incredible. And how incredible my new husband, my ex-husband, and my two sons are all together. And watching them all be together and as a family, which sounds bizarro, but I think we get to create whatever we want. And that was one of the first things I told my husband as we started to date. I go, so part of this whole, I come with, this is what I come with. He's like, okay, that sounds great. And it was funny. My ex-husband and my sons were over for dinner the other night. And as my ex-husband drove off, he says, great job with Tim. He is such a super guy. We all love him.
Oh, you have really created an entire community of mind share and a family of people that have the harmonic convergence. Good for you.
Yes.
That's incredible.
It can be done. It took a while. It didn't start that way. It can be done, It's
really been an honor having you on the show. And I love that we've come to this place that we're really learning about the gifts. And I can't believe you're the way you chose to not waste your energy on this other person and say it wasn't even something that was on my radar. You were just focused on the 110%. That says so much about your motherhood and your fire in your belly. I just love it. Thank you so much. If people want to get a hold of this book, JJ, we're going to, of course, put links where we do the write-up and everything. But what is the full name of this book that they should look for?
So it's on Amazon, Warrior Mom.
Warrior mom. That's really what you are, warrior mom. Besides so many other things, CEO and founder of Mindshare Summit, a whole 500 people coming together this August. The top-notch,
changing the world.
Changing the world. You really have, and it's been an honor to have you on the show. I'm sitting here just feeling much better than when before it started. I feel somewhat transformed myself.
Too.
Thank you so much, and blessings to you, and may your kids just continue to thrive. And I look forward to seeing you in August. I just made my reservations this morning.
Oh, good. I was going to say, get that hotel room.
I did. Okay. Blessings, awesome. And thanks again.
You.
And everybody, this has been so inspirational. And you hear how you can really take what life serves you and come out the other side better for it. But what you've got to have is that attitude. Perspective, attitude is everything. And if you get this book, you're going to learn how she lives it. Thank you so much. We've been virginated. Thank you so much. Blessings.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.